Richard shoved Emma's face into the divorce papers. "Sign it, you useless whore." Blood from her nose stained the document. 400 guests watched. No one moved. His pregnant mistress laughed. His mother smiled. Emma signed, fled, drove her Mercedes off a cliff at 70 miles per hour, crawled from the wreckage into the blizzard, walked until her legs stopped working, collapsed in the snow, waited to die. But 3 miles away, a German shepherd named Atlas lifted his head, sniffed the wind, started running. And Navy SEAL Jake Morrison, a man who had lost everything in Afghanistan, grabbed his coat and followed his dog into the storm that would change both their lives forever. Subscribe to our channel and follow this incredible story to the very end. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. The pen felt like a knife in her hand. Emma stared at the divorce papers spread across the cocktail table, right in the center of the Grand Pinewood Resort ballroom, under the crystal chandelier, surrounded by 400 witnesses who used to call themselves her friends. "Sign it." Richard's voice was ice. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." "Richard, please." Her voice cracked. "Can we at least talk about this somewhere private? 4 years of marriage, and you're ending it like this? 4 years of disappointment." He took a sip of champagne. Casual. Bored. 4 years of waiting for you to be useful. 4 years of my mother telling me I made a mistake. A mistake. Marrying you. Richard set down his glass. "The only thing you were supposed to do was give me an heir. And you couldn't even do that." The words hit like physical blows. Emma felt her knees weaken. "That's not fair. The doctors said you're defective." Margaret Ashford appeared at her son's elbow, her smile sharp as a blade. "Which is why we found a replacement." A young woman stepped forward, platinum blonde, 24 years old, a baby bump visible beneath her designer dress, and around her neck, Emma's grandmother's sapphire necklace, the one Richard swore was lost during the renovation. "Hi, Emma." Brittany's voice dripped with false sweetness. "Richard's told me so much about you. I'm so sorry things didn't work out." Emma couldn't breathe. "You've been sleeping with her." The words came out hollow. "While we were married. For 18 months. Richard didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. "Brittany's giving me what you couldn't. A son, an heir, a future. I gave you everything, my inheritance, my career, my—" "Your what?" Richard laughed. "Your little architecture dreams, your pathetic designs. Emma, you haven't produced anything of value in 4 years. You've been living off my family's name, spending my family's money, and failing at the one job you were hired to do." "Hired? What did you think this was, a love story?" Margaret's laugh was cruel. "You were a business transaction. $3 million in exchange for a womb. Unfortunately, the merchandise was defective." Emma felt something break inside her. Not her heart that had been dying slowly for years. Something deeper. Something fundamental. "The prenup." She looked at the papers. "It says I get nothing." "You brought nothing of value to this marriage," Marcus Webb said, the family lawyer. The man who'd promised 4 years ago that the prenup was just a formality. "The terms are clear. I brought $3 million, which was spent on the house you no longer own." Richard smiled. "The estate is in escrow. New buyers take possession Monday. You have 72 hours to collect your personal belongings." "Where am I supposed to go?" "That's not really my concern anymore, is it?" Emma looked around the ballroom. 400 faces. People she'd hosted at dinner parties. Women she'd volunteered with. Couples she'd considered friends. Not one would meet her eyes. "Sign it." Richard's patience was wearing thin. "Or I'll make this much worse." "How could it possibly be worse?" "I could tell everyone about the medication. The antidepressants you've been hiding. The anxiety attacks. The therapist I've been paying for because my wife is mentally unstable." Emma went cold. "That's private. That's confidential. Nothing is confidential when you're in Ashford. Or should I say, when you were in Ashford. Richard leaned close. Sign the papers, walk away quietly, and I'll let you keep your dignity. Fight me, and I'll have you committed by morning. You wouldn't. Mother has connections at Pine Ridge Psychiatric. One phone call, and you'll spend the next 6 months in a padded room. His voice dropped to a whisper. They're very effective at treating hysterical women who make accusations against prominent families. Emma believed him. That was the worst part. After 4 years of marriage, she knew exactly what Richard Ashford was capable of. She picked up the pen. Her hand was shaking so badly she could barely write. The first letter, E. That's it. Richard's voice was encouraging, condescending, the way you'd speak to a child learning to tie their shoes. Just a few more letters. M. M. A. The pen slipped. Her palm was bleeding. She'd been gripping her wedding ring so hard it had cut into her flesh. Blood dripped onto the paper. You're ruining the document. Margaret's voice was irritated. Someone get her a napkin. No one moved. Emma finished signing, dropped the pen, stood on legs that didn't feel connected to her body. There. It's done. Richard picked up the papers, examined them. Finally, Marcus, file these first thing Monday. I want to be officially single before Brittany's next ultrasound. Richard. Emma's voice came from far away. Did you ever love me, even once? He looked at her. Really looked at her for the first time that night. I loved what you represented. Stability, respectability, the appearance of a normal family. He shrugged. But love you, no. I don't think I did. Emma walked out of the ballroom. No one stopped her. No one followed. She was already erased. The valet brought her car, the Mercedes that was technically Richard's, that would be repossessed by Monday. Mrs. Ashford. The young man's voice was soft, pitying. Are you okay to drive? You look... I'm fine. She wasn't fine. She would never be fine again. The car moved through the resort gates, and Emma drove. No destination, no plan, just movement. Anything to escape the weight of what had just happened. The blizzard hit 30 minutes outside town. Snow falling so thick she could barely see the road. Wind howling against the windows. The temperature dropping every minute. Emma didn't care. Let it snow, let it freeze, let the whole world disappear into white. Her phone buzzed. A text from Richard. Don't do anything dramatic. The Ashford name doesn't need any more embarrassment. Emma laughed. It came out broken, hysterical. Don't do anything dramatic. She was about to become a statistic. Another woman destroyed by a powerful man. Another casualty of a marriage that was never a marriage at all. The road curved sharply. Emma didn't. The Mercedes hit the guardrail at 40 miles per hour, crashed through, tumbled down the embankment. Emma felt the airbag explode against her face, felt the car rolling, felt something crack in her ribs. Then silence. She was hanging upside down, blood dripping from her forehead, the engine dead, the snow already piling against the shattered windows. Help! Her voice was barely a whisper. Someone help me! No one answered. Of course no one answered. She was in the middle of nowhere in a blizzard, in a car that was rapidly becoming a coffin. Emma managed to unbuckle her seatbelt, fell against the roof of the overturned vehicle, crawled through the broken window. The cold hit her like a wall. She was wearing a Valentino gown and 4-inch heels. No coat. No phone. It had been thrown somewhere during the crash. The snow was already knee-deep. Emma started walking. She didn't know where she was going, didn't care. The cold was actually pleasant now, numbing the pain in her ribs, the ache in her heart, the memories that wouldn't stop playing. You're defective. I loved what you represented. Don't do anything dramatic. Emma laughed again. This time, no sound came out. Her feet were already numb, her fingers too. The red dress was soaked through, clinging to her body like a second skin. She thought about her parents, both dead. Cancer took her mother. Grief took her father 6 months later. She thought about her grandmother, the one who left her the inheritance, the one who always said Emma was meant for great things. "I'm sorry, Grandma." The words frosted in the air. "I don't think I was meant for anything at all." She fell. The snow was soft, almost comfortable, like a bed made of ice. Emma closed her eyes. This is how it ends, she thought. Alone in a blizzard, wearing a dress I bought for my honeymoon, dying because a man decided I wasn't worth keeping. The cold was fading now. Everything was fading. She heard something. A bark. Far away. Probably a hallucination, she decided. The brain playing tricks before it shuts down. The bark came again. Closer. And then something warm pressed against her face. Emma opened her eyes. A dog was standing over her. A German shepherd with a thick coat of brown tan and black fur. Intelligent eyes. A leather collar with military tags. "Hello," Emma whispered. "Are you real?" The dog barked. Once. Sharp. Then it lay down beside her. Pressed its warm body against hers. Started licking her face. "You're warm." Emma's voice was dreamy. Distant. "That's nice." "Don't move." A man's voice. Deep. Commanding. The kind of voice that expected to be obeyed. Footsteps crunching through snow. A flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. And then he was there. Tall. Broad-shouldered. A face carved from stone, marred by a scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. Eyes that were blue and cold and somehow impossibly concerned. "How long have you been out here?" "I don't know." Emma tried to sit up. Failed. "An hour, maybe more." "Jesus Christ." The man knelt beside her. Pressed his fingers to her neck. "Your pulse is weak. Hypothermia. We need to move." "I'm fine. I just want to sleep." "If you sleep, you die." He was already lifting her. "Atlas. Home." The dog stood, barked once, started moving through the snow. "Atlas." Emma's head lolled against the man's chest. "That's a good name for a dog." "He's not a dog, he's my partner." The man was walking fast, following the German shepherd through the blizzard. "What's your name?" "Emma. Emma Sullivan." She paused. "No. Emma. I don't know anymore. I don't have a name." "Everyone has a name." "I had a husband, had a house, had a life." Her laugh was broken. "Turns out I didn't have any of those things. They just let me borrow them for a while." "You're not making sense." "Nothing makes sense. That's the point." The man didn't respond. He just kept walking. Steady. Sure. Like carrying a woman through a blizzard was something he did every day. Emma closed her eyes. She dreamed of warmth, of fire, of hands that were rough but gentle, removing her wet dress, wrapping her in blankets. She dreamed of a dog lying beside her, radiating heat. She dreamed of a man's voice saying, "Stay with me. Don't you dare die." When she woke, the first thing she saw was firelight. The second thing she saw was the German shepherd lying exactly where he'd been in her dream, watching her with those intelligent brown eyes. "Hey, boy." Her voice was raw, scratchy. "You're still here." Atlas's tail wagged. Once, twice. "He hasn't left your side in 12 hours. Emma turned her head. The man from the blizzard was sitting in a chair by the fire. Same scarred face, same cold eyes. But now she could see more of him, the military bearing the calloused hands, the way he held himself like someone expecting an attack. 12 hours. You were hypothermic. Core temperature of 91 degrees when I found you. Any longer and you'd be dead. Maybe that was the plan. The man's expression didn't change. Suicide? Does it matter? It matters to me. Why, you don't know me. I know you drove off a cliff in a blizzard wearing a ball gown. I know you weren't trying to get anywhere. The nearest town is 40 miles in the other direction. He leaned forward. I know what giving up looks like. Speaking from experience. Yes. That stopped her. Who are you? Jake Morrison, Lieutenant Commander, United States Navy, retired. Navy SEAL. Something like that. And the dog? Atlas, military working dog, retired. Jake's voice softened slightly when he talked about the shepherd. We served together. 4 tours in Afghanistan. Emma looked at the dog, at the slight limp in his front leg that she hadn't noticed before. He's hurt. Old wound. Kandahar, 2019. We were ambushed. He took a bullet getting me to cover. Jake reached down, scratched behind Atlas's ears. I would have died without him. We both would have died without each other. Emma felt something shift in her chest. Not hope she'd forgotten what that felt like, but something. Why do you live out here? Why does anyone live anywhere? That's not an answer. Neither is, maybe that was the plan. Jake stood. You need to eat. I made soup. I'm not hungry. I don't care. He walked to the small kitchen. You've been unconscious for 12 hours. Your body needs fuel. You can't force me to eat. No, but I can tell Atlas to stare at you until you feel guilty enough to comply. Despite everything, Emma almost smiled. He'd do that. He's very good at guilt trips, military training. Jake returned with a bowl of soup. Simple. Hot. The smell made Emma's stomach clench with unexpected hunger. Fine. She struggled to sit up. Her ribs screamed in protest. But only because the dog is watching. Good enough. She ate. The soup was surprisingly good, thick with vegetables seasoned with something she couldn't identify. Jake watched without speaking. Atlas watched without blinking. What happened to you? Jake finally asked. Before the blizzard. You mean, why was I trying to kill myself? If that's what you want to call it. Emma set down the spoon. My husband divorced me. Tonight. In front of 400 people. He called me defective because I couldn't give him children. His mother called me a failed business transaction. His pregnant mistress was wearing my grandmother's jewelry. She laughed. The sound was hollow. He said he'd have me committed if I didn't sign quietly. Said he had connections at a psychiatric facility. Said they're very effective at treating hysterical women. Son of a bitch. That's being generous to his mother. Jake's jaw tightened. What's his name? Does it matter? It matters to me. Richard Ashford, of the Montana Ashfords. Old money, old power, old habits of destroying anyone who inconveniences them. Jake's expression changed. Subtle, but Emma caught it. You know that name? Everyone in Montana knows that name. But you know it differently. Jake was quiet for a long moment. The Ashfords have a history. Not all of it appears in the newspapers. What does that mean? It means you're lucky you got out alive. Emma stared at him. Lucky I lost everything. My home, my money, my identity. I have 72 hours to collect my personal belongings before they sell the house I helped design. How is any of that lucky? The Ashfords don't usually let people leave with the ability to talk. The words hung in the air. What are you saying? I'm saying you should rest. Jake stood. We can talk more in the morning. No. Emma grabbed his arm. The contact was electric, something passing between them that she couldn't name. What do you know about the Ashfords? What aren't you telling me? Jake looked at her hand on his arm, then at her face, then at Atlas, who had risen to his feet, tail wagging slowly. He likes you, Jake said quietly. He doesn't like anyone. Answer my question. In the morning. Jake? In the morning, Emma. You've survived enough for one night. Some truths can wait until sunrise." He pulled away, walked toward a door at the back of the cabin. "Sleep. The couch is yours. Atlas will stay with you." "Why?" Jake stopped at the door. "Because he's decided you're worth protecting. And Atlas is never wrong about people." He disappeared into the back room. Emma lay on the couch staring at the fire. Atlas jumped up beside her, pressed his warm body against hers. "What do you know, boy?" she whispered. "What secrets are you keeping?" Atlas huffed. Laid his head on her chest, closed his eyes. Emma ran her fingers through his thick fur. The brown and black pattern was beautiful, like living camouflage. She thought about Jake's words. The Ashfords don't usually let people leave with the ability to talk. What did that mean? What had she married into? And why did a retired Navy SEAL living alone in the Montana wilderness know about her ex-husband's family? The questions chased each other through her mind. But exhaustion won. Emma slept. And for the first time in 4 years, she didn't dream about Richard at all. She dreamed about wolves howling, about snow falling, about a scarred man carrying her through a blizzard, about a dog named Atlas who had decided she was worth saving. When she woke, the sun was streaming through the windows. Jake was already up, coffee brewing. Atlas was outside. She could see him through the window, running through the snow like a puppy despite his limp. "Morning." Jake didn't turn from the stove. "How are the ribs?" "How did you know about my ribs?" "You were groaning in your sleep every time you moved." He poured 2 cups of coffee. "I'm guessing the crash did more damage than hypothermia." "I'll be fine." "You'll see a doctor." "I don't have insurance anymore." "I know a guy." Jake set the coffee in front of her. "Former combat medic, lives about 10 miles from here. He owes me." "You have a lot of people who owe you." "I have a lot of history." Emma sipped the coffee. Strong, bitter, perfect. "You said we'd talk in the morning." "I did." "It's morning." Jake sat across from her. His eyes were different in daylight, less cold, more complicated. The eyes of someone who'd seen things he couldn't unsee. "What do you know about your husband's family history?" "Richard's family. Old money, real estate. Some kind of scandal in the 1950s that everyone pretends didn't happen." "What kind of scandal?" "I don't know. Margaret refused to talk about it. Richard said it wasn't important." Emma set down her cup. "Why, what do you know?" Jake was quiet for a moment. "My grandmother lives about 20 miles from here. Dorothy Mae Morrison. She's 82 years old, and she's lived in these mountains her entire life." "Okay." 60 years ago, Dorothy's best friend was a woman named Clara Sullivan. Your grandmother, unless I'm mistaken." Emma's heart stopped. "How did you—" Clara told Dorothy everything. About her family, about the land they owned, about the Ashfords who wanted it. Jake's voice hardened. About the night Clara's husband died in a hunting accident that was actually murder. Murder. The Ashfords wanted Sullivan land. George Sullivan wouldn't sell, so they took it. Jake's eyes met hers. "They killed your grandfather, forged documents to claim the property, and threatened to kill Clara if she ever told anyone the truth." Emma couldn't breathe. That's impossible." "Dorothy has the proof. Letters Clara wrote, documents she hid, evidence of what the Ashfords did. If that's true, why didn't anyone—" "Because the Ashfords own this state. Judges, police, politicians, anyone who tried to expose them disappeared." Jake leaned forward. "Clara spent her whole life protecting that evidence, waiting for someone brave enough to use it. She never told me. She never said anything. She didn't want you involved, didn't want you in danger." Jake paused. "But then you married Richard Ashford." Emma felt sick. "They knew. Margaret knew. That's why she never liked me, because I was a Sullivan. More than that, the inheritance you brought into the marriage, the $3 million, that money came from Sullivan, land the Ashfords stole 60 years ago. They consider it repayment of a debt. They used me from the beginning." "Yes." Richard never loved me. Richard was sent to find you, to bring you into the family, to make sure the last Sullivan couldn't threaten them. Emma stood, paced. Her ribs screamed, but she didn't care. Why divorce me if they wanted to keep me contained? Why let me go? I don't know. That's what worries me. What do you mean? Jake looked out the window. Atlas was still playing in the snow, but his ears were perked now. Alert. The Ashfords don't let loose ends walk away. Your grandmother survived because she was too scared to talk. Your mother survived because she didn't know the truth. And me. Jake's eyes met hers. You drove off a cliff in a blizzard. If I hadn't found you, you'd be dead by morning. The Ashfords would have their perfect ending tragic accident, no questions asked. The realization hit Emma like a physical blow. You think they tried to kill me? I think your car went off a road you've driven 100 times. I think the blizzard was convenient. I think powerful families don't leave things to chance. But Richard was at the party. He couldn't have... Richard doesn't have to do anything himself. That's what money is for. Emma sank back onto the couch. Everything she thought she knew was wrong. Her marriage, her inheritance, her entire life. What do I do? Jake stood, walked to the window, watched Atlas running through the snow. You have two choices. You can walk away, disappear, start over somewhere the Ashfords can't find you. He turned to face her. Or you can fight. Fight how they have everything. Money, power, connections. I have nothing. You have evidence. You have Dorothy's files. And you have something else. What? Me. Jake's voice was quiet, hard. I spent 15 years learning how to destroy things. Targets, networks, empires. I know how to take apart something that looks invincible. Why would you help me? You don't even know me. Jake looked at Atlas. The dog had stopped playing, was watching through the window with those intelligent eyes. Atlas decided you were worth saving. He's never been wrong. Jake's jaw tightened. And I have my own history with powerful people who think they're above consequences. What history? That's a story for another time. He walked to the door. For now, you need to decide. Run or fight. Emma looked at her hands, still shaking, still bleeding slightly where the ring had cut her. She thought about Richard's face when he made her sign the papers. The contempt, the absolute certainty that she was nothing. She thought about her grandmother, keeping secrets for 60 years, protecting evidence, waiting for someone brave enough to use it. She thought about all the years she'd spent believing she wasn't good enough, wasn't pretty enough, wasn't productive enough. She thought about dying in the snow, and she thought about the dog who had found her, the man who had carried her, the truth that had been waiting 60 years to be told. Fight. Her voice surprised her, stronger than it had been in years. Jake nodded. Good. Then we have work to do. He opened the door. Atlas bounded inside, shaking snow everywhere, pressing his cold nose against Emma's hand. Welcome to the war, Emma Sullivan. Jake's eyes were hard, determined. The Ashfords don't know it yet, but they just made the worst mistake of their lives. What's that? They let you live. Dorothy Mae Morrison was not what Emma expected. The 82-year-old woman who opened the cabin door was small, fierce, and looked like she could kill a man with the wooden spoon in her hand. So, you're Clara's granddaughter. Dorothy's eyes traveled over Emma's borrowed clothes, Jake's flannel shirt and sweatpants that hung off her frame. You have her eyes. Same stubbornness too, I'm guessing. Mrs. Morrison. Dorothy. Anyone who's survived the Ashfords earns the right to use my first name. The old woman stepped aside. Get inside before you freeze, and bring that dog. He's the only one with any sense in this family. Atlas bounded through the door, tail wagging. He went straight to Dorothy and pressed his head against her hand. He remembers you, Jake said. Dogs always remember the people who sneak them bacon. Dorothy scratched behind Atlas's ears. Come on then. The files are in the back room. Been waiting 60 years for someone with the courage to use them. Emma followed Dorothy through the cabin. Her ribs ached with every step, but she didn't complain. This was too important. Jake told me about my grandfather, about the murder. Jake told you the summary. The truth is worse. How could it be worse? Dorothy stopped at a door, turned to face Emma. George Sullivan wasn't just murdered. He was tortured first. The Ashfords wanted to know where he'd hidden the original land deeds, the ones that proved they'd forged their ownership claims. Her voice hardened. He never told them. Died protecting documents that have been sitting in my basement for 60 years. Emma felt sick. And my grandmother. Clara watched the whole thing. They made her watch. Then they told her if she ever spoke a word, they'd do the same to her daughter, your mother, and then to her. My mother never knew. Clara made sure of it. The only way to protect your family was to keep them ignorant. Dorothy opened the door. But Clara never stopped hoping. Never stopped believing that someday, somehow, justice would come. The back room was small. A desk, a filing cabinet, and boxes, dozens of boxes stacked against the walls. All of this. 60 years of evidence, letters, documents, photographs, newspaper clippings Clara collected, testimony she wrote and never shared. Dorothy pulled out a thick folder. And this, the original land deeds, the ones the Ashfords have been looking for since 1962. Emma took the folder with trembling hands. The paper was old, yellowed, but the signatures were clear. Sullivan, not Ashford. This proves they stole our land. This proves a lot more than that. Dorothy sat in the desk chair, suddenly looking all of her 82 years. The Ashford fortune isn't just built on stolen land. It's built on bodies. What do you mean? Your grandfather wasn't the first, and he wasn't the last. Dorothy's eyes met Emma's. Over the past 60 years, at least 7 people who threatened the Ashford empire have died under mysterious circumstances. Accidents, suicides, disappearances, all dismissed, all forgotten. Jake stepped forward. You never told me about the others. You never asked about the others. Dorothy's voice was sharp. You came here to hide Jake, to heal. I wasn't going to burden you with a fight that wasn't yours. It's mine now. Is it? Or is it hers? Dorothy looked at Emma. Because this girl is the one who has to decide how far she's willing to go. Emma set down the folder. What do you mean, how far? I mean the Ashfords won't go quietly. They'll fight. They'll lie. They'll threaten. And if that doesn't work, Dorothy's voice dropped. They'll kill. Like they've always killed. I'm not afraid of them. You should be. Fear keeps you alive. Dorothy stood, walked to Emma, took her hands. But fear isn't the same as surrender. Your grandmother was afraid every day of her life, but she never stopped fighting. She just fought in secret. And now the secret is out. Now you have evidence that could destroy them. Now you have a choice. Dorothy squeezed her hands. Run and hide, or stand and fight. Emma thought about Richard's face, the contempt, the certainty. She thought about Margaret's smile, the cruelty, the satisfaction. She thought about Brittany wearing her grandmother's jewelry, about 400 guests watching her humiliation, about a blizzard that might not have been an accident. I want to fight. Then God help you. Dorothy released her hands. Because the Ashfords certainly won't. The next 3 days were a blur of documents and revelations. Jake had connections, former military contacts who could verify information, trace financial records, uncover secrets that had been buried for decades. Look at this. Jake spread a printout across the table. The accident that killed your grandfather, the county sheriff who investigated, was Marcus Webb's father. Marcus Webb, Richard's lawyer. 3 generations of Webbs have been protecting the Ashfords. 3 generations of cover-ups. Jake's jaw tightened. The rot goes deep. Emma studied the documents. Police reports that didn't add up. Witness statements that had been altered. Evidence that had mysteriously disappeared. They really have been doing this for 60 years. Longer. Dorothy's files go back to the 1920s. The Ashfords have been building their empire on broken bodies since before the Depression. Atlas whined. He was lying at Emma's feet, where he'd been since they arrived at Dorothy's cabin 3 days ago. "What is it, boy?" The dog's ears were perked, alert, focused on the door. Jake was on his feet instantly. His hand went to his waist, a gun Emma hadn't noticed before. "Someone's coming." "How do you—" Atlas knows. He always knows. Emma heard it now. An engine, growing closer. "Could be a neighbor," Dorothy said from her chair. "Could be the mailman." "The mailman doesn't come on Sundays." Jake moved to the window. Black SUV, tinted windows, 2 occupants. Ashford security. Worse, government plates. Jake's expression darkened. FBI. Dorothy made a sound of disgust. 30 years ago, 3 FBI agents investigated the Ashfords. 2 were reassigned to Alaska. The 3rd died in a car accident. Single vehicle. No witnesses. The knock was loud. Official. "Mrs. Morrison, FBI. We'd like to ask you some questions." Jake looked at Emma. "Closet. Now. Take Atlas." "I'm not hiding. You're not legally here. Your ex-husband has reported you missing. If the FBI finds you here, they'll take you to him." Jake's voice was steel. "Closet. Now." Emma didn't argue. The closet was dark, cramped, but Atlas pressed against her warm and solid. She heard voices through the thin walls. "We're looking for a woman named Emma Ashford. Her vehicle was found at the bottom of a ravine. Her husband is concerned." Dorothy's voice was calm. "Never heard of her. You might know her as Emma Sullivan. Her grandmother was Clara Sullivan, a woman you knew quite well." A pause. "Clara's been dead for 15 years. I don't see how that helps you find this Emma person." "Mrs. Morrison, we have witnesses who saw a man matching your grandson's description near the crash site the night Mrs. Ashford disappeared." Jake's voice now. "I was home. Ask anyone." "There is no one to ask, Lieutenant Commander. You live alone. And your reputation—" The FBI agent's voice hardened. "Let's just say the Navy was happy to see you go." Emma felt Atlas tense beside her, a low growl building in his chest. "Easy, boy." She stroked his fur. "Easy." The voices continued. "We're going to search the premises. Standard procedure in a missing persons case. You got a warrant? Do we need one unless you have something to hide?" A long silence. Then Dorothy's voice, sweet as poison. "Agent Collins, I've lived in these mountains for 60 years. I've seen FBI agents come and go. Some of them honest. Most of them bought." She paused. "I wonder which kind you are." "Excuse me?" "I wonder if you're really here to find a missing woman. Or if you're here because Richard Ashford made a phone call to someone who made a phone call to someone who told you to clean up a mess." Another silence. Longer this time. "You're paranoid, Mrs. Morrison." "I'm old. There's a difference. When you've lived as long as I have, you learn to recognize patterns, like the pattern of people who threaten the Ashfords disappearing, or dying, or being committed to psychiatric facilities." The FBI agent's voice changed, slightly, just enough for Emma to notice. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Then you won't mind if I record this conversation, for my records, since I'm just a paranoid old woman and all." "That won't be necessary." "Neither is this visit. Unless you have a warrant, I suggest you leave. My grandson gets nervous around federal agents. And when he gets nervous, his dog gets protective." Atlas growled, loud enough to be heard through the closet door. "Is that a threat?" "It's a warning. The dog doesn't like strangers, especially strangers who serve corrupt interests." Footsteps, moving away. "This isn't over, Mrs. Morrison." It's been 60 years, Agent Collins. Nothing is ever over with the Ashfords. We just keep counting the bodies. The door closed. Emma heard the SUV start, drive away. The closet door opened. Jake stood there, face grim. They'll be back. I know. With a warrant next time. Probably. Emma stepped out. Her legs were shaking. How did they know? How did they find me so fast? The Ashfords have contacts everywhere. Police, FBI, judges. Jake's expression was dark. They've been tracking you since the crash. But I was dead. I was supposed to be dead. You were supposed to die in that blizzard. When you didn't, they started looking. Jake ran a hand through his hair. They know you're alive. They know you're with me. And they know you have access to Dorothy's files. How could they know about the files? Because they've always known. Dorothy's voice was tired. They've been watching me for 60 years, waiting to see if I'd ever use what Clara gave me. They knew I had the evidence. They just didn't know exactly what it contained. Then why didn't they kill you? Because I was careful, never talked, never shared, never gave them a reason. Dorothy sighed. But you're not going to be careful, are you? I can't be careful. I have 72 hours, no 68 hours now before they sell my house, before they complete the divorce, before they erase any evidence that I ever existed. What evidence at the house? Emma thought about it. What had she left behind? Documents from Richard's office. He was sloppy, sometimes brought work home, left files on his desk. I saw things. She paused. Things I didn't understand at the time. Financial records, letters, photos of people I didn't recognize. Jake leaned forward. What kind of financial records? Transfers, large amounts, to companies I'd never heard of. Emma closed her eyes, trying to remember. One name kept coming up. Obsidian Holdings. Richard was obsessed with it. He made calls late at night, always using a burner phone. Obsidian Holdings. Jake pulled out his laptop, started typing. I know that name. It's a shell company, used for moving money that doesn't want to be traced. Money from what? Jake's face went pale. Human trafficking. The words hung in the air. That's impossible. Richard is a real estate developer. He builds hotels and condos and what you think billionaires get rich building condos? Jake turned the laptop toward her. Obsidian Holdings has been flagged by Interpol for the past 3 years. They move money across borders for some of the worst organizations on the planet. Emma felt like she was falling. I was married to a human trafficker. You were married to a man whose family has been committing crimes for a century. Trafficking is just the latest revenue stream. Dorothy spoke up. The Ashfords have always diversified. In the 60s, it was bootleg alcohol moving through the mountains. In the 80s, it was drugs. Now, she shook her head. Now they've found something even more profitable. People. The most valuable commodity on earth. Emma sat down hard. Her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. I have to go back. What? I have to go back to the house, before they clear it out, before they destroy the evidence. She looked at Jake. You said I had to choose, run or fight. I chose fight. Well, this is the fight. Emma, they're watching the house. The FBI is looking for you. Richard's security. I know the house. I designed it. I know every entrance, every exit, every secret passage Richard doesn't even know about. Emma stood. I can get in and out without being seen. And if you can't, then I die trying, which is what I was going to do 3 days ago anyway. She met his eyes. At least this time it'll mean something. Jake stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Atlas and I are coming with you. Jake, you don't have to. I'm coming with you. His voice left no room for argument. You're not doing this alone. Dorothy rose from her chair, walked to a closet, pulled out a shotgun that looked older than she was. I'll hold down the fort here. Anyone comes looking, they'll get a face full of buckshot. Dorothy, I've been waiting 60 years for this fight. I'm not sitting it out now." The old woman's eyes blazed. "Bring me back something good. Something that'll put those bastards in the ground where they belong." Emma hugged her. The embrace felt like a promise. "I'll finish what my grandmother started." "I know you will." Dorothy pulled back, smiled. "You've got Sullivan blood, it's stubborn as hell." The drive to the Ashford estate took 4 hours. Jake knew back roads, mountain paths, routes that avoided cameras and checkpoints. Atlas sat in the back seat, alert and watchful. "Tell me about the secret passages," Jake said. "When I designed the house, Richard wanted a panic room, standard billionaire paranoia. But I gave him more than that. Hidden corridors throughout the structure, emergency exits that aren't on any blueprints. He doesn't know about them. He thinks he knows about them. But I added extras, just in case." Emma's voice darkened. "I told myself it was for emergencies, fire, intruders. But maybe part of me always knew I might need to escape from him." Smart woman. Not smart enough to avoid marrying him. "You were young. He was charming. That's how predators work." Emma looked out the window. The mountains were beautiful, peaceful. Nothing like the storm raging inside her. "How do you know so much about predators?" Jake was quiet for a moment. "Because I used to be one. In Afghanistan, I hunted people for a living. Taliban leaders, bomb makers, terrorists." His voice was flat, emotionless. "I was very good at it." "Is that why you left?" "I left because I got good enough to recognize the same tactics being used back home. By corporations, by governments, by families like the Ashfords." He gripped the steering wheel tighter. "I left because I couldn't stomach killing for my country when my country was protecting people who deserved to die." Emma studied his profile. The scar, the tension, the pain. "What happened in your last mission?" "That's not—" "I told you about my worst night, the ballroom, the humiliation, all of it." Emma's voice was gentle. "What happened in yours?" Jake didn't respond. For so long that Emma thought he wouldn't. Then quietly, "We were betrayed. Someone sold our location to the enemy. My entire team was killed. 8 men. Brothers." His voice cracked. "I made it out. Atlas made it out. Everyone else—" "I'm sorry. I spent 2 years trying to find out who sold us out. The trail led back to Washington, to people who were supposed to protect us." Jake's jaw tightened. "I got too close, asked too many questions. They retired me before I could find the truth." "So you came here?" "I came here to disappear, to forget, to let the world move on without me. But then I crashed into your life. Literally." For the first time, Jake almost smiled. "Atlas heard the crash. Started running before I could stop him. Found you in the snow." He glanced at her. "I think he knew, before I did, that you were important." Atlas barked from the back seat. "Agreement. He's special. He saved my life in Kandahar, dragged me 300 meters while I was bleeding out. Took a bullet doing it." Jake reached back, scratched Atlas's head. "I don't go anywhere without him. I don't trust anyone else." "You trust me. I trust that you're going to do something stupid and get yourself killed if I'm not there to stop you." "That's not the same as trust. It's close enough." They drove in silence after that, but something had changed between them. Some barrier had fallen. 2 damaged people, finding something like hope in each other. The estate appeared at midnight. Even in darkness, it was imposing. The house Emma had designed her dream home, built with her inheritance, now a prison she had to infiltrate. "Security." Jake handed her binoculars. 2 guards at the main gate, cameras on every entrance. Emma scanned the perimeter. "But the east wing has a blind spot. The contractor didn't install the camera correctly. Richard never fixed it." "Then that's our entry." "There's one more thing." Emma lowered the binoculars. "The secret passage I mentioned. It connects to Richard's office. But it's tight. You might not fit. Then you go alone. Jake, I'll cover the perimeter. Keep the guards busy if needed. Atlas stays with you. Emma looked at the dog. Atlas's eyes were fixed on the estate, alert, ready. He'll fit. He's squeezed through smaller spaces. You'd be surprised what military dogs are trained for. Emma took a deep breath. Okay, let's do this. They moved through the darkness like shadows. Jake's training was evident, every step deliberate, every movement silent. The blind spot was exactly where Emma remembered. A gap in the camera coverage near the East Wing service entrance. Here. She pressed a concealed panel. A section of wall slid open. The passage leads directly to Richard's office. I'll be in and out in 10 minutes. If you're not back in 15, I'm coming in loud. Don't. If something goes wrong, get Dorothy. Get the files. Make sure the evidence gets out. Jake grabbed her arm. Nothing is going to go wrong. Promise me. Emma. Promise me you'll finish this, no matter what happens to me. Their eyes met. Something passed between them that neither could name. I promise. Emma slipped into the passage. Atlas followed. The darkness was absolute. But she knew this route. Had walked it dozens of times during construction, checking every detail. The passage twisted, narrowed. She could hear Atlas breathing behind her, his claws clicking softly on the stone floor. After what felt like hours, she reached the end. Another concealed panel. Richard's office on the other side. Emma pressed her ear against the wall. Silence. She triggered the release. The panel slid open. Richard's office was dark. Empty. Exactly as she'd left it 3 days ago, no, a lifetime ago. Atlas emerged behind her, immediately circling the room, sniffing. Good boy. Stay quiet. She moved to Richard's desk, opened drawers, searched files. Most of it was useless. Business documents, contracts, the kind of paperwork that looked legitimate. But then she found it. A hidden compartment in the bottom drawer. Triggered by a mechanism she'd designed herself, one of the safety features Richard had requested. Inside, a leather portfolio, thick with documents. Emma opened it. Her breath caught. Financial records. Dozens of transfers to Obsidian Holdings. But more than that, photographs. Young women. Girls. Some barely teenagers. And names, dates, locations. This wasn't just evidence of financial crimes. This was evidence of human trafficking. A network spanning decades. Hundreds of victims. Oh God. Her voice was barely a whisper. Oh my God. Atlas growled. Low. Warning. Emma heard it too. Footsteps. Coming toward the office. She shoved the portfolio into her bag. Moved toward the passage. Too late. The door opened. Richard Ashford stood in the entrance. Behind him, 2 guards. Hello, Emma. His voice was cold, amused. I was wondering when you'd come back for your things. Atlas moved before Emma could react. The German shepherd launched himself at the nearest guard, 80 pounds of fury, slamming into the man's chest. They went down hard. The guard's scream was cut short as Atlas's jaws found his arm. Atlas guard. The second guard reached for his weapon. Emma grabbed the desk lamp, swung. It connected with his skull. Glass shattered. The guard staggered. Richard hadn't moved. He stood in the doorway, watching the chaos with something like amusement. Impressive. He stepped over the groaning guard. I always knew there was fire in you somewhere. Shame it took a divorce to bring it out. Stay back. Or what? You'll hit me with a lampshade. Richard laughed. Emma, you're many things, boring, barren, forgettable, but you're not violent. You don't have it in you. Atlas growled. The guard under him had stopped struggling. I found your files. Richard's amusement flickered, just for a moment. What files? The ones with the photographs, the financial records, the names of every girl your family has sold in the past decade. Emma clutched the portfolio tighter. It's over, Richard. Everything you built, everything the Ashfords have built, it ends tonight." Richard's expression changed, the mask of casual cruelty dropping away to reveal something colder, darker. "You don't understand what you've found." "I understand exactly what I've found. Evidence, proof. Everything Dorothy has been waiting 60 years to expose." "Dorothy." Richard's voice sharpened. "That old witch is still alive. Very much alive, and very eager to testify. Testify to what ancient history? My grandfather's sins." Richard stepped closer. Atlas growled louder, but he didn't attack. "Emma, the things in that portfolio, they're not just about my family. They're about everyone. Judges, senators, FBI directors, businessmen whose names you'd recognize from the news." "You're lying." "Emma, open the portfolio. Look at the photographs again. Look at the men in them." Richard's smile was vicious. "Half of Washington has blood on their hands. You think exposing me is going to bring justice? You'll disappear before the trial. Everyone who helps you will disappear. That's how it works." "Not this time. Every time. That's the secret they don't teach in school. The powerful protect each other. Always have. Always will." A sound from outside. Glass breaking. Gunfire. Jake. "Your friend is very persistent." Richard didn't seem concerned. "I have 12 men on the perimeter. Former military. Very capable." "So is Jake." "Lieutenant Commander Morrison." "Yes, I know all about him. Decorated SEAL. Tragic hero. The kind of man who thinks he can save the world through violence." Richard's eyes met Emma's. "Did he tell you why he really left the Navy?" "He told me his team was betrayed." "Did he tell you who betrayed them?" Emma's blood went cold. "What are you talking about?" "The intelligence leak that killed Morrison's team came from inside the Pentagon. A general named Harold Watson, the same general who spent 30 years protecting Ashford interests overseas." Richard's smile widened. "Morrison has been looking for the man who killed his friends. And all this time that man has been protected by my family." "You're lying. You're trying to confuse me." "I'm trying to help you understand the scope of what you're dealing with." Richard spread his hands. "This isn't about one family's crimes. This is about a system, a network, an empire that spans generations and continents. You can't destroy it with a few documents and an angry dog." More gunfire outside. Closer now. "Jake will get through." "Maybe. Probably actually. Your SEAL is annoyingly competent." Richard checked his watch. "But by the time he does, you'll be gone. And so will that portfolio." He snapped his fingers. The door behind him opened. Margaret Ashford stepped through, flanked by 2 more guards. "Hello, dear." Margaret's smile was poison. "I hear you've been causing trouble." "Margaret." "Mrs. Ashford. Though I suppose that doesn't apply to you anymore, does it?" Margaret walked forward, her heels clicking on the hardwood. "You were supposed to die in that blizzard. Clean. Simple. A tragic accident that would have brought Richard so much sympathy." "Sorry to disappoint." "Oh, you've been disappointing since the day we met." Margaret stopped in front of Emma. "A Sullivan. I should have known. Your grandmother had the same stubborn stupidity. Thought she could stand against us. Look how that ended." "My grandfather." "Your grandfather was a fool who chose death over cooperation, and your grandmother chose silence over revenge. Neither option served them well." Margaret's eyes went to the portfolio. "Give me the documents." "No." "That wasn't a request." "I don't care." Margaret raised her hand. One of the guards stepped forward. Atlas lunged. The guard went down screaming, the dog's jaws locked on his throat. Not killing Emma could see the restraint, but close. Controlled violence. The threat was clear. "Call off your dog." Margaret's voice trembled. First crack in the armor. "Give me a reason." "I'll have it shot." "You'll try. And then you'll explain to the police why there's a dead military working dog in your home at 2 in the morning. Emma's voice was steady, surprising even herself. "Atlas is registered with the VA. Decorated. If he dies, questions get asked. The kind of questions you can't buy your way out of." Margaret's mask cracked further. Fear in her eyes now. What do you want? I want the truth, all of it. About my grandfather, about the trafficking, about everyone your family has destroyed in the past century. And if I give you that, then maybe Atlas doesn't rip your guard's throat out. And maybe I let you run before the FBI arrives. The FBI works for us. Not all of them. Emma thought of the agents at Dorothy's cabin. Something in Collins's voice that suggested not everyone was bought. You've been bribing people for so long you forgot some of them might actually believe in justice. Richard laughed. The sound was ugly. Justice, Emma, you still don't understand. There is no justice. There's only power, and those who have it. A crash from the hallway. Shouting, then silence. Jake Morrison appeared in the doorway. He was bleeding. A cut above his eye. His shirt torn. But he was standing, and in his hands was a rifle taken from one of Richard's guards. Everyone okay? We're negotiating. Looks like it. Jake's eyes swept the room. Atlas, the guards, Richard, Margaret. How many outside? 12, you said. Richard's smirk had vanished. You killed them all. I disabled them. Killing is messy. Jake moved into the room. Although I'm willing to make exceptions. You can't just... Can't what? Walk into your home and take what's mine? Jake's voice was ice. General Harold Watson. You know that name. Richard went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. 3 years ago, Watson sold the location of SEAL Team 7 to Taliban forces. 8 men died. I was supposed to be one of them. Jake raised the rifle. Watson is protected by your family. Has been for decades. That's insane. I have proof, payments, communications, everything I need to put Watson in prison, and you're going to give me the rest. There is no rest. There's always more. With families like yours, there's always more. Jake's finger moved to the trigger. I came to Montana to heal, to forget. I told myself I could walk away from everything. But then, Atlas found Emma, and Emma led me to you, and you lead me to Watson. This is about revenge. This is about justice. Something your family hasn't experienced in a century. That ends tonight. Margaret stepped forward. You have no idea what you're threatening. The people who protect us are politicians and bureaucrats who will abandon you the moment you become a liability? Jake's voice was calm, certain. I've spent 3 years studying how these networks operate. The moment evidence goes public, everyone scrambles to distance themselves. You'll be alone within hours. You're bluffing. I'm a SEAL. We don't bluff. We execute. Emma watched Richard's face. Watched the calculations. The fear fighting with arrogance. What do you want? Everything. Files. Records. Communications. Every piece of evidence connecting your family to Watson and his network. Jake paused. And a confession. A confession. To the murder of George Sullivan, and the other 7 people your family has killed in the past 60 years. Margaret laughed. The sound was brittle. You want us to confess to murder? Do you know how insane that sounds? I know exactly how it sounds. I also know that the alternative is much worse. What alternative? Jake lowered the rifle slightly. The Ashford Empire survives on discretion, on secrets, on the understanding that exposure means mutual destruction for everyone involved. He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. I'm not part of that network. I have nothing to lose. If you don't cooperate, I burn everything, every relationship, every protection, every backdoor deal you've made in the past century. You'll destroy yourself in the process. Probably, but I'll take you with me. The room was silent. Emma watched Richard and Margaret exchange looks. A conversation without words. 60 years of family secrets hanging in the balance. The files are in the safe. Richard's voice was barely a whisper, behind the painting. Richard! Margaret's screech was inhuman. You can't... We don't have a choice, Mother. Richard's shoulders sagged. Morrison isn't bluffing. Look at his eyes. He's already dead inside. He has nothing to lose. Jake nodded toward Emma. Get the files. She moved to the painting, an original that cost more than her childhood home. Behind it, a wall safe. The combination was her birthday. Of course it was. Richard had never been creative. The safe opened. Inside, dozens of folders, flash drives, photographs. A century of crimes cataloged and preserved. This is everything. Richard nodded. If you're lying, I'm not. There's nothing left to lie about. He looked at Emma. Really looked at her for the first time since the divorce. I never wanted this, you know. The family business, the secrets. I was supposed to go to law school, be a prosecutor, fight the bad guys. What happened? My father happened. My grandfather. 3 generations of Ashfords explaining that morality is for people who can't afford power. Richard's laugh was hollow. By the time I realized what I'd become, it was too late to be anything else. It's not too late. It is for me. Richard's eyes went to his mother. But maybe not for everyone. Margaret was silent. Her face had aged 20 years in the past 5 minutes. The women in those photographs. Emma's voice was hard. Where are they? Most are overseas, sold through Obsidian Holdings to buyers we've never met. Richard's voice was flat, defeated. The network is bigger than us. We're just one node. Shut us down, and another family takes our place. Then we shut them all down. You can't. Watch me. Emma gathered the files, stuffed them into her bag alongside the portfolio. Evidence enough to destroy an empire. Jake kept his rifle trained on the Ashfords as she worked. Atlas, come. The dog released the guard still alive, still whimpering, and moved to Emma's side. What happens now? Margaret's voice was small. Old. Now you wait. Jake moved toward the door. In about an hour, FBI agents are going to arrive. Not the ones you've bought. New ones. People who've been building cases for years waiting for a break. Agent Chen. Emma suddenly understood. She's been investigating you. She's been waiting for someone to come forward, someone with evidence, someone who couldn't be bought or threatened. Jake looked at Emma. That's you. How do you know Chen? I know her because I've been feeding her information for 3 years. Everything I found about Watson, about the network, about the families that protect them. Jake's voice softened. I was waiting for the right moment, the right leverage. You gave me both. You used me. I protected you. There's a difference. Emma wanted to be angry. But looking at Jake's face, the exhaustion, the pain, the 3 years of solitary investigation, she couldn't find it. Let's go. They moved through the house, past the guards Jake had disabled, past the broken windows and scattered shell casings. Outside, the night was quiet. The violence over. Your car. Jake led them toward the trees. Half a mile east, hidden. They walked in silence, Atlas between them. The bag of evidence heavy on Emma's shoulder. What happens if Chen's people don't believe us? They'll believe the evidence. 60 years of documentation, financial records, photographs. Jake's voice was certain. The Ashfords made one mistake every empire makes eventually. What's that? They kept receipts. Despite everything, Emma laughed. They actually kept receipts of their crimes. Families like theirs always do. Insurance against each other. Proof that everyone is complicit. Jake shook his head. It's how these networks survive for generations. Mutual assured destruction. Everyone has dirt on everyone else. Until someone decides they have nothing left to lose. Until then. The car was where they'd left it. Jake did a sweep checking for trackers' explosive surveillance before allowing Emma inside. Dorothy. We'll call her from the road. Let her know it's done. Is it done? Jake started the engine. The beginning of the end. Tonight, we expose the Ashfords. Tomorrow, their protection network starts to crumble. Next week, people like Watson start getting nervous. He pulled onto the road. The FBI will take it from here. Chen has been waiting for this moment her entire career. And us. We disappear for a while. Let the professionals handle the prosecution. Stay out of the crossfire. I don't want to disappear. I want to testify. You will. When it's safe. Jake glanced at her. Right now, every person connected to that network is panicking. Some will try to run. Others will try to destroy evidence. A few might try to eliminate witnesses. You mean kill me? I mean try. They won't succeed. How can you be sure? Jake reached into the back seat, scratched Atlas's head. Because I'm not letting you out of my sight, and neither is he. Atlas barked. Agreement. Emma leaned back in her seat, exhaustion hitting her all at once. I was dead 3 days ago. Almost dead. I was ready to die. I wanted to die. She looked at Jake's profile, the scar, the determination. Why did you save me? Atlas saved you. You carried me through a blizzard. Atlas found you first. Stop deflecting. Jake was quiet for a long moment. My team died because I couldn't protect them. 8 brothers, men I'd fought beside for years. His voice cracked. When Atlas found you in that snow when I saw you dying, I couldn't let it happen again. I couldn't watch someone else die while I did nothing. So I'm penance. Your purpose. Jake's eyes met hers. For 3 years I've been surviving, existing, waiting for a reason to keep going. Then you crashed into my life literally, and suddenly there was something worth fighting for. The evidence, the case, you. His voice dropped. The case gives meaning to what we're doing, but you're the reason I care. Emma didn't know what to say. They drove in silence for miles. The mountains passing, the stars fading as dawn approached. Where are we going? Safe house, about 40 miles from here. Former CIA retired owes me a favor. You have a lot of people who owe you favors. I have a lot of people who don't ask questions. Jake smiled slightly. In my world, that's the same thing. What happens after the safe house? We contact Chen, transfer the evidence, start the process of destroying everything the Ashfords built. And then we see what kind of world exists when families like theirs no longer control it. Emma thought about that. A world without Ashfords, without Watsons, without the networks that protected them. It seemed impossible. But 3 days ago, escaping her marriage had seemed impossible too. I want to help. You are helping. I mean after. When the trials start. When the survivors come forward. Emma's voice strengthened. The women in those photographs, the girls who were sold. Someone needs to help them rebuild. That's a lot of work. That's a purpose. Emma looked at him. You saved my life. Now I want to save theirs. Jake nodded slowly. Then that's what we'll do. The phone rang. Dorothy's number. Jake answered on speaker. It's done. We have everything. Dorothy's voice crackled through. The FBI came back. Different agents this time. Younger. Angrier. Chen's people. They didn't say, but they took my statement. All of it. 60 years of testimony. Dorothy laughed. They asked if I had any corroborating evidence. I gave them Clara's original files. The ones you've been hiding. The copies. The originals are still safe. Dorothy's voice sharpened. Trust no one completely, Jake. Not even the ones who seem clean. I know. And take care of Clara's granddaughter. She's the best of that bloodline. The one we've been waiting for. Emma spoke up. Dorothy, I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me. Survive. Testify. Burn them all to the ground. Dorothy's voice softened. That's what Clara would have wanted. That's what I've been waiting 60 years to see. The line went dead. Jake looked at Emma. Ready? She thought about everything she'd lost. Her marriage, her home, her identity. Then she thought about everything she'd gained. Evidence, purpose, a man who'd carried her through a blizzard, a dog who'd decided she was worth saving. Ready! Atlas barked from the back seat. Dawn broke over the mountains, and Emma Sullivan, who had signed her death 3 days ago in tears, drove toward a new life, built on the ashes of the old. The Ashfords had stolen 60 years from her family. Now it was time to take them back. The safe house was compromised. Jake knew it the moment they pulled up. The porch light was off. It should have been on. The curtain in the front window was drawn. Left it should have been right. Get down. Emma ducked without question. 3 days of running had taught her to trust Jake's instincts. What's wrong? Someone's been here. Jake killed the engine. Let the car coast into the shadows. Atlas, quiet. The dog's ears flattened. His body tensed, ready. Could be Chen's people. Chen's people would have contacted me first. This is someone else. Jake pulled his weapon. Checked the magazine. Full. Stay in the car. Jake. Stay in the car, Emma. If I'm not back in 5 minutes' drive, don't look back. He was gone before she could argue. Emma watched him disappear into the darkness, counted the seconds. 1, 2, 3. Atlas whined beside her. I know, boy. I don't like it either. 4 minutes passed. Then 5. Emma reached for the door handle. A gunshot shattered the silence. Jake! She was out of the car before she could think. Running toward the house. Atlas beside her. The front door was open. Jake was standing over a body, not dead, groaning, clutching his shoulder. He was waiting inside. Jake didn't look up. Former Ashford security. Must have tracked us from the estate. Is there anyone else? Not anymore. Emma looked at the man on the floor. Young, scared, bleeding. What do we do with him? Leave him. Chen's people will pick him up. Jake finally met her eyes. We need to move. If they found this safe house, they might find others. Where do we go? The only place the Ashfords can't touch. Jake pulled out his phone. We go public. The FBI field office was chaos. Agent Sarah Chen was smaller than Emma expected. 5'4" sharp eyes, the kind of face that made people underestimate her. She'd been waiting at the entrance when they arrived. Morrison, you look like hell. It's been a long night. I heard. The Ashford estate is on lockdown. Richard and Margaret are in custody. Chen's eyes moved to Emma. And you must be the woman who started all this. I'm the woman who almost died for it. That's usually how these things start. Chen led them inside, through security, down corridors that seemed to go on forever. We've been building a case against the Ashfords for 5 years. Never had enough to move. The people who protect them. I know who protects them. Jake's voice was hard. Harold Watson. Chen stopped walking. You have evidence. I have everything. Financial records, communications, the whole network. Jake handed her the portfolio. Watson sold my team to the Taliban. 8 men died because of him, and he's been protected by the Ashfords for 30 years. Chen opened the portfolio. Her face changed as she read. This is more than we hoped for. It's enough to bring them all down. It's enough to start a war. Chen closed the portfolio. Morrison, you need to understand what you're asking. Watson has connections at the highest levels. Generals, senators, cabinet members. Exposing him means exposing everyone he's worked with. Good. It means putting targets on your backs. We already have targets on our backs. Emma stepped forward. Agent Chen, 3 days ago, I signed divorce papers in front of 400 people while my husband's mistress wore my grandmother's jewelry. I drove off a cliff. I almost died in a blizzard. I have watched everything I thought I knew turn out to be lies. And I'm done running. I'm done being afraid. The Ashfords have been destroying families for a century. Watson has been protecting them while soldiers die overseas. Emma's voice shook with rage. I want to watch them burn, all of them, whatever it takes. Chen studied her for a long moment. You're either very brave or very stupid. Does it matter? Not really. Chen almost smiled. Come with me. There's someone you need to meet. The someone was Dorothy Mae Morrison. She was sitting in an interrogation room, though it looked more like a conference room with comfortable chairs and bottled water. She looked tired, old, but her eyes still blazed. Grandma. Jake moved to her side. You should be home. Home is compromised. FBI agents have been crawling all over it since dawn. Dorothy patted his hand. I'm fine. These nice people have been very accommodating. Mrs. Morrison has been providing testimony for 6 hours, Chen said. 60 years of evidence. Names, dates, locations. Everything Clara gave me. Dorothy's voice softened. Everything I've been waiting to share. Emma sat across from her. Why now? Why wait so long? Because I needed to. The Ashfords have survived for a century by destroying anyone who threatens them. I watched Clara die afraid. Watched your mother live in ignorance. Watched 3 generations of women suffer because one family decided they were above the law. What changed? You did. Dorothy reached across the table, took Emma's hands. When Jake brought you to my cabin, when I saw Clara's eyes looking back at me, I knew. The time was finally right. How could you know? Because you survived. Because you fought. Because you didn't let them win. Dorothy's grip tightened. Clara spent her whole life hoping someone would be brave enough to finish what we started. That someone is you. Emma felt tears building, fought them back. I don't feel brave. Brave isn't a feeling. It's a choice. You choose to keep going when everything tells you to stop. Dorothy smiled. That's what Clara did. That's what you're doing now. Chen cleared her throat. I hate to interrupt, but we have developments. What kind of developments? Richard Ashford is talking. The interrogation room was cold. Richard sat on one side of the table, shackled, unshaven, looking nothing like the man who had humiliated Emma 3 days ago. She wants to see him. Chen raised an eyebrow. I need to see him. Emma's voice was steady. I need to understand. Understand what? How someone becomes that. How someone sells their own family to monsters. Chen hesitated, then nodded. You have 15 minutes. Emma entered alone. Richard looked up as the door closed. Emma. His voice was rough, broken. I didn't expect to see you again. I didn't expect to be alive. The blizzard was Mother's idea. She arranged for your brakes to fail. I didn't know until after. He laughed bitterly. Not that it matters now. Why are you talking? Why not? It's over. The network is collapsing. Watson tried to flee the country this morning. They caught him at JFK with $3 million in cash and a fake passport. Richard shook his head. Everyone is scrambling, cutting deals, selling each other out. And you? I'm trying to survive, same as always. His eyes met hers. I know what you think of me. Coward, monster, the man who destroyed your life. Is that not what you are? It's exactly what I am. I just wish... He stopped, started again. I wish I'd been strong enough to be something else. What does that mean? It means I knew, from the beginning, what my family was, what they did. Richard's voice cracked. I told myself I could change things from the inside, that if I played along long enough I could find a way to stop them. But you didn't. I became them instead, every compromise, every silence, every time I looked the other way. He looked at his shackled hands. By the time I realized what I'd become, there was no way back. Emma felt something unexpected. Not forgiveness, not pity, but understanding. You could have walked away and gone where the Ashfords own this state. They have connections everywhere. Running wasn't an option, they would have found me. Richard laughed again. The sound was hollow. You want to know the real irony? I married you because you were supposed to be harmless. A quiet, compliant woman who would never ask questions. And instead, you turned out to be the one person brave enough to destroy us. Richard's eyes glistened. Clara would be proud. You knew about my grandmother. Everyone knew. The Sullivan problem was family legend. How George Sullivan refused to sell. How Clara threatened to expose us. How my grandfather solved both issues. Richard's voice dropped. I grew up hearing those stories as cautionary tales. Don't let anyone get too close. Don't let anyone accumulate evidence. Don't let anyone survive long enough to fight back. And now it's all coming apart. Everything my family built for a century, destroyed by a woman I tried to erase. Richard met her eyes. I'm going to prison. Probably for the rest of my life. But before I go, I want you to know something. What? I'm sorry. Not for what I did, I don't deserve forgiveness for that. But for who I could have been, for the life we could have had if I'd been a different person. Emma stood. You're right. You don't deserve forgiveness, but you do deserve the chance to make things right. How? Testify. Against Watson. Against the network. Against everyone who's been protected by your family's blood money. Emma's voice hardened. You spent your whole life being a coward. This is your chance to be something else. She walked out without looking back. The next 2 weeks were a blur. Emma testified before a grand jury. Detailed everything: the marriage, the divorce, the attempted murder, the evidence she'd discovered. Dorothy testified too. 6 decades of secrets finally spoken aloud. Jake testified about Watson, about his team, about 3 years of investigation that had led nowhere until Emma crashed into his life. And one by one, the dominoes fell. Watson was arrested. Indicted on 17 counts of espionage and conspiracy. The general who had protected Ashford interests for 30 years was finally facing justice. Margaret Ashford attempted suicide in her cell. Failed. Was placed on suicide watch and eventually agreed to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence. Richard became the prosecution's star witness. Named names. Provided documentation. Helped trace the financial flows that connected the Ashfords to trafficking operations in 6 countries. And the survivors started coming forward. Lily Torres was the first. She appeared at the FBI field office 3 days after Emma's testimony went public. 37 years old. Haunted eyes. Hands that wouldn't stop shaking. I was Richard's second wife. Lily's voice was barely a whisper. Before Emma. Before he learned to be careful. What happened to you? The same thing that almost happened to her. Isolation. Humiliation. And when I tried to fight back. Lily pulled up her sleeve. Scars ran from wrist to elbow. They made it look like suicide. Committed me to Pine Ridge for 3 years. The psychiatric facility. Margaret's solution for problematic women. Drug them until they forget. Lock them away until they stop fighting. Lily's eyes found Emma's. You're the first one who got away. The first one who survived long enough to expose them. There were others. At least 4 that I know of. Women who married into the family. Women who knew too much. Women who tried to leave. Lily's voice hardened. Most of them aren't around to tell their stories anymore. Chen stepped forward. We'll need you to testify. I'll do more than testify. I'll help you find the others. Lily stood. The women who survived. The ones who've been hiding. They need to know they're not alone anymore. Within a week, 11 women had come forward. 11 survivors of Ashford cruelty. 11 stories of abuse, manipulation, and attempted murder. 11 voices that had been silenced for decades finally speaking the truth. And with each testimony, the case grew stronger. The network that had protected the Ashfords began to collapse. Politicians distanced themselves. Businessmen deleted communications. Judges suddenly remembered prior commitments. Rats leaving a sinking ship, Chen observed during one of their meetings. When the money stops flowing, loyalty disappears. Will it be enough? It'll be enough for the Ashfords. Margaret and Richard are facing multiple life sentences. The evidence is overwhelming. Chen paused. Watson is another matter. What do you mean? Watson has connections at the Pentagon. People who would rather see this whole investigation disappear than have their own involvement exposed. Chen's voice hardened. We're fighting an uphill battle. Every day there are new pressures to drop charges, new threats to witnesses, new obstacles that appear out of nowhere. Jake entered the room. He looked exhausted, they all did. Morrison, any progress on the Pentagon angle? 3 of Watson's colleagues have agreed to testify, but they're scared. These aren't civilians. They're military officers who know what happens to whistleblowers. What do they need? Guarantees, protection, the knowledge that if they come forward, they won't be abandoned. Jake looked at Chen. Can you give them that? I can try. Trying isn't enough. These men have families, careers, lives that will be destroyed if they testify, and the case falls apart. Jake's voice cracked. My team died because someone in the Pentagon decided their lives weren't worth protecting. I won't let that happen again. Emma touched his arm. We'll find a way. How the system is rigged, the people we're fighting control the system. Then we go outside the system. Emma's mind was racing. The evidence we have, it's not just for trials. It's for the public, for the press, for everyone who's been told that people like the Ashfords are untouchable. You want to leak it? I want to make it impossible to ignore. If the Pentagon is pressuring Chen to drop charges, then we make the evidence so public that dropping charges becomes political suicide. Chen shook her head. That's dangerous. Leaking classified information is exactly what whistleblowers do. And right now, we're all whistleblowers. Emma's voice was steady. You've been fighting this fight for 5 years. Jake's been fighting for 3. I've been fighting for 2 weeks. But we're all fighting the same battle against people who think they're above the law. And sometimes the only way to beat people who control the system is to burn the system down. The press conference was Emma's idea, not a leak, not anonymous documents sent to journalists, a public statement with faces and names and evidence that couldn't be ignored. She stood at the podium, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. My name is Emma Sullivan. 3 weeks ago, I was Emma Ashford, wife of Richard Ashford, daughter-in-law of Margaret Ashford, member of one of Montana's most powerful families. The room quieted. 3 weeks ago, I signed divorce papers in front of 400 witnesses while my husband called me defective and his pregnant mistress wore my grandmother's jewelry. 3 weeks ago, I drove off a cliff in a blizzard that wasn't an accident. My brakes were tampered with. My death was planned. Gasps from the crowd. I should be dead. I'm not. And now I'm going to tell you why the Ashford family tried to kill me. She spoke for 45 minutes. About her grandfather's murder. About 60 years of cover-ups. About the trafficking network that had funded the Ashford empire. About the politicians and generals who had been protecting them. She named names, showed photographs, presented documents that couldn't be disputed. And when she was done, she introduced the other survivors. Lily Torres, Sarah Martinez, Rebecca Chen, Jennifer Wilson. 9 more women who had suffered at Ashford hands. 9 more stories of abuse and attempted murder. One by one, they told their truth. The cameras captured everything. The tears, the rage, the decades of pain finally given voice. And by the time the press conference ended, the world had changed. The fallout was immediate. Within hours, the Ashford story was everywhere. Cable news, social media, international headlines. Within days, more survivors came forward. Not just from Montana, from across the country. Women who had been silenced, families who had been destroyed. A century of victims finally finding their voices. And the pressure on the Pentagon became unbearable. Watson's protectors abandoned him. The generals who had covered for him suddenly discovered that their own careers were at stake. The wall of silence cracked, then crumbled. 3 military officers testified against Watson. Then 5. Then 12. The evidence was damning. Communications, financial records. A 30-year pattern of betraying American soldiers for money and protection. Watson was convicted on all 17 counts. Life in prison. No possibility of parole. When the verdict was announced, Jake Morrison stood in the back of the courtroom. He didn't cheer, didn't celebrate. He just closed his eyes and thought about 8 men who would never come home. "It's not enough," he said later. "Nothing will ever be enough." Emma understood. Justice wasn't resurrection. It couldn't bring back the dead or undo the damage, but it could prevent future harm. And that was something. Dorothy Mae Morrison died 3 days after Watson's conviction. Peacefully, in her sleep, with Jake at her side and Emma holding her hand. "She waited," Jake said afterward. "She waited until it was done." 60 years. 60 years of keeping secrets, protecting evidence, waiting for someone brave enough to use it. Jake's voice cracked, and she lived just long enough to see it happen. The funeral was small, private, just family and a few close friends. But the impact of Dorothy's life, of Clara's life, of all the women who had fought in silence, would echo for generations. "What happens now?" Emma asked as they stood at the grave. "Now we rebuild." Jake took her hand. "The trials are over. The verdicts are in. The Ashfords are destroyed. And us. Jake turned to face her. "Emma, I spent 3 years alone, hiding, running from a fight I thought I could never win. Then you crashed into my life literally, and everything changed. Jake, I'm not good at this, at feelings, at being human." His voice was rough, uncertain. "But I know what I feel, and I know that whatever comes next, I want to face it with you." Atlas pressed between them, tail wagging. "He approves," Emma said softly. "He always knew, before either of us." Jake smiled. "Dogs are smarter than people." Emma looked at the grave, at the mountains, at the man who had saved her life, and the dog who had found her in the snow. Yes. Yes what? Yes to whatever comes next. Yes to rebuilding. Yes to facing it together. She squeezed his hand. "I signed my death 3 weeks ago in tears. But today I'm signing my future." Jake kissed her. Atlas barked. And somewhere in the mountains, Emma could have sworn she heard Clara Sullivan laughing. The covenant continued. The fight was over. The healing could begin. 1 year passed. The Sullivan Morrison Center for Survivors opened on a cold January morning, exactly 365 days after Emma had signed her divorce papers in tears. The building stood on land that had once belonged to her grandfather. Land the Ashfords had stolen 60 years ago. Land that had finally come home. "I can't believe we did it." Emma stood at the entrance watching the first cars arrive. "I can't believe it's real." "It's real." Jake was beside her, always beside her now. Dorothy would have loved this. Clara too. Atlas sat between them, tail wagging as volunteers and staff filtered past. The dog was older now, 9 years, his muzzle graying, but his eyes were still sharp, still watchful, still protecting. "Mrs. Morrison." A young woman approached, clipboard in hand. "The first residents are asking for you." Emma smiled at the title. She'd kept Jake's name when they married 3 months ago. A quiet ceremony. Just family and close friends. The way both of them preferred. "Tell them I'll be right there." The woman nodded and disappeared inside. "You don't have to do this alone." Jake touched her arm. "I can come with you." "I know, but the first intake needs to be personal. Just me and them." Emma kissed his cheek. "Save me a coffee. Always." She walked inside. The center was everything Emma had dreamed. 30 private rooms, a medical clinic, a counseling wing, a job training facility. Everything survivors needed to rebuild their lives. And in the lobby, a bronze plaque with names Clara Sullivan, Dorothy Mae Morrison, and the countless women who never got to tell their stories. This center exists because they refuse to be forgotten. The covenant continues. The first residents were 3 women and 2 children. Maria Santos had escaped a trafficking operation in Texas. She was 23, but looked 40, her eyes holding decades of pain. Rebecca Chen had survived an abusive marriage to a senator's son. She'd been silenced with threats for 7 years before the Ashford trials gave her courage. Jennifer Wilson had been one of the Ashford Network's early victims. 62 years old, still carrying scars from what they'd done to her in the 60s. And 2 children, Maria's daughters ages 4 and 6, who had seen things no child should see. "Welcome to the Sullivan Center." Emma's voice was warm, steady. "You're safe here. Whatever happened before, that's over. This is where healing begins." Maria's eyes were suspicious, guarded. "People have told us that before." "I know, and they were lying." Emma sat across from her. "I was married to Richard Ashford for 4 years. His family tried to kill me. They succeeded in killing my grandfather." She paused. "I know what it means to be promised safety and given pain instead." "Then why should we trust you?" "Because I'm not promising safety. I'm offering a chance." Emma leaned forward. "What you do with that chance is up to you. If you want to leave, leave. If you want to stay, stay. The only rule here is that you get to choose. For the first time in however long you get to choose." Maria was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at her daughters, at their faces, at the hope that hadn't completely died in their eyes. "We'll stay." "Good." Emma stood. "Let me show you your room." The first 6 months were the hardest. Building a center was one thing, running it was another. Funding was tight. Staff burned out. Some residents left in the middle of the night, too damaged to accept help. "We lost 3 more this week." Emma sat in Jake's arms, exhausted. "Just disappeared. No note. Nothing." "You can't save everyone." "I know, but I want to. I want to help every woman who walked through those doors." Her voice cracked. "When they leave, when they choose to go back to what hurt them, I feel like I've failed." "You haven't failed. You've given them options they didn't have before." Jake pulled her closer. "Some people aren't ready to be saved. That's not your fault." "Then why does it feel like my fault?" Atlas patted over, pressed his head against her leg. "Because you care." Jake smiled. "That's why this works. That's why people come here. They can tell when someone actually gives a damn." "I'm just so tired." "I know. We all are." "How do you keep going after everything Afghanistan? Watson, your team. How do you wake up every morning and face it?" Jake was quiet for a moment. "I look at Atlas. Every day that dog gets up and does his job, protects people, serves a purpose, even when he's tired, even when his leg hurts, even when the world doesn't make sense." Jake scratched behind the dog's ears. "If he can do it, I can do it. And if he couldn't, then I'd carry him, just like he carried me." Emma looked at the German Shepherd, at the gray in his muzzle, at the slight limp that was getting worse with age. "He's getting old." "I know. What will you do when—" "I don't think about that." Jake's voice tightened. "One day at a time. That's all any of us can do." Atlas barked, soft, understanding. One day at a time. It would have to be enough. The call came at 3 a.m. Emma was half asleep when she answered. Is this Emma Morrison? Yes. Who is this? Agent Chen. We have a situation. Emma was instantly awake. What kind of situation? Richard Ashford was released from prison this morning. Early parole. Some technicality his lawyers found. The words hit like physical blows. That's impossible. He was sentenced to life. He was sentenced to 40 years with the possibility of parole. His lawyers argued good behavior cooperation with authorities. Remorse. Chen's voice was bitter. The parole board bought it. He tried to have me killed. He testified against Watson. In the eyes of the law, that counts for something. Emma felt the world tilting. Everything she'd built. Everything she'd survived. And now Richard was free. Where is he? That's why I'm calling. He left Montana immediately after release. Our sources say he's headed for the Sullivan Center. What? He wants to talk to you. His lawyer sent a formal request this afternoon. When it was denied, Richard apparently decided to come anyway. Jake was already up. He'd heard enough. Where is he now? 30 minutes out, maybe less. Chen paused. I can send agents, but they won't arrive in time. Don't bother, I'll handle it. Emma hung up. Jake. I heard. He was already dressed, already reaching for the gun safe. Atlas. The dog was on his feet, alert, ready. This is my fight. It's our fight. It's always been our fight. Jake checked his weapon. Richard doesn't get to terrorize you anymore, not after everything we've been through. He's not coming to terrorize, he's coming to talk. Men like Richard don't talk, they manipulate, they threaten, they destroy. Jake's eyes were hard. I won't let him hurt you again. Neither will I. Emma touched his face. But I need to face him, not hide behind walls and guards and lawyers. I need to look him in the eyes and show him that he didn't break me. Emma. Please, Jake. Trust me. He was quiet for a long moment. Atlas stays with you. Okay. And I'm watching from the next room. I expected nothing less. Richard's car pulled up at 4 a.m. Emma watched from the entrance, Atlas at her side, Jake hidden but ready. The man who stepped out was nothing like the one she'd married. Richard Ashford had aged 20 years in 12 months. His hair was gray, his face gaunt. His eyes, the same eyes that had looked at her with contempt on that terrible night, were hollow. Emma. His voice was rough, uncertain. Thank you for seeing me. I didn't have much choice. You showed up uninvited. I know, I'm sorry. He stopped 10 feet away, looked at Atlas. The dog doesn't like me. The dog is an excellent judge of character. Richard laughed. The sound was broken. Fair enough. Why are you here, Richard? To apologize. You apologized in prison, during the trial, in letters I never read. Emma's voice was ice. What makes this different? Because I'm dying. The words hung in the air. What? Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. The doctors give me 3 months, maybe 4. Richard's voice cracked. Prison has excellent health care. They found it early enough to treat, but not early enough to cure. Emma didn't know what to feel. The man who had destroyed her life, the man who had tried to kill her, was dying. I'm not looking for sympathy. Richard raised his hands. I know I don't deserve it. I'm looking for, I don't know, closure maybe. The chance to make something right before I go. There's nothing you can make right. I know, but I can try. Richard reached into his pocket. Slowly. Deliberately. I have something for you. Atlas growled. Easy boy. Emma didn't take her eyes off Richard. What is it? Your grandmother's sapphire necklace, the one Brittany was wearing that night. Richard held out a velvet box. I recovered it after the trial, kept it safe. I wanted to give it back to you in person. Emma stared at the box. Why? Because it never belonged to me. None of it did. The land, The money. The power. Richard's voice dropped. Everything my family built was stolen from people like you. I can't give back 60 years of theft, but I can give back this. Emma took the box, opened it. The sapphires gleamed in the early morning light, the same stones her grandmother had worn, the same stones that had been taken from her on the worst night of her life. Thank you. There's more. Richard reached into his pocket again, a folder this time. The original deed to Sullivan Land. The real one, not the forgeries my grandfather used. I found it in my mother's effects after she died. Margaret is dead. 6 months ago. Prison doesn't agree with 70-year-old women. Richard's voice was flat. She never admitted guilt. Died blaming everyone else for her choices. That sounds like Margaret. It sounds like all of us. The Ashfords, the Watsons, everyone who thought they could build empires on broken bodies. Richard set the folder on the ground, stepped back. The land belongs to you now. Legally. Finally. Emma looked at the folder, at the man who had destroyed her life. Why are you really here, Richard? And don't say closure. You could have mailed these. Richard was quiet for a long moment. I'm here because I wanted to see what you built. The center, the foundation, everything that rose from the ashes of my family's crimes. He looked at the building behind her. Dorothy told me once that broken things can become beautiful. I didn't believe her. But standing here seeing what you've done, I think I understand. Dorothy said that, in court, during her testimony, she looked right at me and said that the Ashfords had spent a century breaking things, but that broken things could be mended, could become stronger than before. Do you believe that? I believe it about you, about this place. Richard's eyes glistened. I don't believe it about myself. Some things are too broken to fix. Atlas's growl had softened. Not friendly. The dog would never be friendly to Richard, but less hostile. You're dying. Yes. And you're scared. Terrified. Richard laughed again. I spent my whole life being feared. Now I'm the one who's afraid. It's humbling. What do you want from me, Richard? Really? I want to know that my death means something, that the evidence I provided, the testimony, the names, the documents actually helped. Richard's voice cracked. I want to know that somewhere, somehow, something good came from my wasted life. Emma looked at him, really looked. The monster who had humiliated her, the coward who had tried to kill her, the broken man who was standing in front of her now. 47 women have come through this center since it opened, 19 children. We've helped them find jobs, housing, therapy. We've reconnected families, saved lives. Emma paused. Your testimony helped convict Watson. That conviction encouraged other witnesses to come forward. Those witnesses helped shut down trafficking operations in 6 countries. How many people? The FBI estimates over 300 victims have been rescued directly because of information you provided. Richard closed his eyes. 300. It doesn't make up for what you did. It doesn't erase the pain you caused. Emma's voice softened slightly. But it matters. It meant something. Thank you. Richard's voice was barely a whisper. Thank you for telling me. What will you do now? Go somewhere quiet. Wait for the end. Richard smiled sadly. I don't expect heaven. I just hope hell isn't as bad as I deserve. He turned to leave. Richard. He stopped. If you want. Emma hesitated. The center has hospice care for survivors who are terminal. It's not fancy, but it's peaceful. You're offering me a place to die. I'm offering you a choice. That's what we do here. Richard stared at her. After everything I did to you, you would let me die here. I wouldn't let you anywhere near the other residents, but we have a separate wing, for special cases. Emma paused. Dorothy believed in redemption. She thought anyone could change if they wanted it badly enough. And you, what do you believe? I believe in second chances, even for people who don't deserve them." Richard was crying now, silent tears tracking down his gaunt face. "I don't understand." "Neither do I." Emma smiled slightly. "But Dorothy would have wanted this. Clara would have wanted this. The covenant, the one between survivors, it's about more than revenge. It's about healing, even for the people who caused the wounds." Richard fell to his knees. "I'm sorry." His voice was broken, shattered. "I'm so sorry, Emma, for everything, for the divorce, for the humiliation, for trying to—" "I know. I was a monster." "You were. But monsters can become human, if they choose to." Atlas approached Richard, sniffed him, then impossibly licked his hand. Jake's voice came from behind Emma. "What's happening?" "I'm not sure." Emma watched the dog, the same dog who had tried to attack Richard a year ago, offer comfort to a dying man. "But I think Atlas just made a decision." Richard looked up at the German shepherd, at the woman he'd tried to destroy, at the world that had somehow impossibly offered him grace. "Thank you." His voice was raw. "Thank you." Richard Ashford died 3 months later, peacefully, in the hospice wing of the Sullivan Center, with a nurse at his side and a German shepherd lying at the foot of his bed. Emma was there at the end. "I'm scared." Richard's voice was barely a whisper. "I know. Do you think—" He coughed, struggled. "Do you think there's something after? Something that makes sense of all this?" "I don't know. But Dorothy believed there was. Clara too. What did they believe? They believe that love is stronger than death, that the people we hurt can forgive us, that the covenant between broken souls continues even when our bodies fail." Richard closed his eyes. "That sounds nice." "It does." "Emma." "Yes." "Tell your grandmother I'm sorry, when you see her." "I will." Richard's hand relaxed, his breathing slowed, and then quietly, he was gone. Atlas lifted his head, whined once, then lay back down. Emma sat with the body for a long time, thinking about hate, about forgiveness, about the strange paths that lead us from darkness to light. Richard Ashford had been a monster, then a witness, then a dying man seeking redemption, and in the end, he'd found something like peace. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was all any of them could hope for. 5 years after the gala, the Sullivan Morrison Center had grown beyond anything Emma imagined. 3 facilities across Montana, partnerships with organizations in 12 states, a training program that had helped over 1,000 women find employment, and a German shepherd who had become the most famous therapy dog in America. Atlas was 14 now, ancient for his breed. His muzzle was completely gray. His walk was slow and careful, but his eyes, those intelligent brown eyes, still sparkled with purpose. "He's getting worse." Dr. Hayes had been gentle but honest. "The cancer in his hip has spread. We can manage the pain, but—" "How long?" Jake's voice was hollow. "Days. Maybe a week." Jake hadn't spoken for hours after that. Emma found him on the porch that evening, Atlas's head in his lap. "I can't do this." "I know. He saved my life. In Kandahar. In Montana. Every day since." Jake's voice cracked. "How do I let him go?" "You don't let him go. You carry him. Just like he carried you." "That's what I said to you, years ago." "I remember." Emma sat beside him. "And you were right. We carry the people we love. Even after they're gone." Atlas lifted his head, looked at them both with those knowing eyes. "He understands." Jake touched the dog's face. "He's always understood." "Then tell him. Tell him everything." Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he leaned down, pressed his forehead against Atlas's. "You were the best partner I ever had. The best friend. The best part of my life. His voice broke. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for finding Emma. Thank you for being brave when I couldn't be. Atlas's tail wagged, weak, but real. When you go wherever you go, find my team. Find Martinez and Chen and Williams. Tell them I'm okay. Tell them I finally found peace. The dog licked his face, one final gesture of love. Good boy. Jake was crying now. You've always been such a good boy. Atlas closed his eyes. And Sergeant Atlas Morrison, military working dog, retired, took his last breath in the arms of the man he'd saved 100 times. The funeral was military honors, 21 gun salute, 21 gun, flag presentation. The works. Over 500 people attended. Veterans, handlers, survivors from the center. Everyone whose life Atlas had touched. Emma spoke at the service. 5 years ago, I was dying in a blizzard. I had given up, lost everything. Decided that death was better than continuing. Her voice was steady, strong. Then a German shepherd found me in the snow. He didn't know who I was, didn't know my story. He just knew that someone needed help, and that was enough. She looked at Jake, at the flag-draped coffin. Atlas taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to act anyway. He taught me that loyalty isn't a word, it's a lifetime of choices. He taught me that the broken can become whole if they're willing to trust someone enough to help them heal. Emma wiped her eyes. He's gone now, but his legacy lives on. In this center, in the thousands of lives it's touched, in everyone who's learned that second chances are possible, even when the world says they're not. She raised her hand in salute. Rest easy, soldier. Your mission is complete. The rifles fired, the flag was folded, and Jake Morrison held the symbol of his partner's service against his chest and wept. 1 year later, Emma stood at the 10-year anniversary celebration of the Sullivan Morrison Center. 3,000 guests, senators, celebrities, survivors who had become advocates, and a new German shepherd named Phoenix sitting at Jake's feet. You ready? Jake took her hand. I've been ready for 10 years. Emma walked to the podium. 10 years ago, I signed divorce papers in tears while 400 people watched my life end. I drove into a blizzard, crashed off a cliff, walked into the wilderness to die. The crowd was silent. A Navy SEAL named Jake Morrison found me. A German shepherd named Atlas saved me. And together with the help of a 100-year-old covenant between survivors, we destroyed an empire that had been crushing families for generations. She paused. The Ashfords are gone. General Watson is in prison. The network that protected them has been dismantled. But justice wasn't the end of our story. It was the beginning. Emma gestured to the building behind her. This center has helped over 5,000 women and children. We've established programs in 37 states. We've trained an army of survivors who have become the protectors of others. Her voice strengthened. Dorothy Mae Morrison once told me that broken things can become beautiful. I didn't believe her at first. But standing here looking at what we've built, I know she was right. Emma looked at Jake, at Phoenix, at the thousands of faces watching her. My grandmother Clara spent 60 years keeping secrets waiting for someone brave enough to use them. My grandfather George died protecting evidence that would eventually destroy his killers. They never saw justice in their lifetimes, but their sacrifice made this moment possible. She raised her hand toward the mountains. The covenant continues, not just in this building, not just in this center, but in everyone who's ever chosen to help instead of hurt. Everyone who's ever stood up for someone weaker. Everyone who's ever refused to let the darkness win. The crowd began to applaud. I signed my death 10 years ago in tears. But today, I sign something different. I sign a promise that as long as I'm alive, no survivor will face their battles alone. That as long as this center stands, there will always be a place for the broken to become whole. Emma smiled. The Ashfords thought they could erase us. They were wrong. The applause built. Clara thought she would never see justice. She was wrong. Louder now. And I thought my life ended in that ballroom. I was wrong too. Emma raised both hands. Because wolves never forget who fed them in their darkest hour, and neither do we. The crowd rose. 3,000 voices raised in celebration. Jake joined her at the podium, Phoenix beside him. "I love you," he whispered. "I love you too." They kissed as the cameras flashed, and the crowd cheered, and the mountains stood witness to a victory 60 years in the making. That night, Emma walked alone to Dorothy's grave. The wildflowers had spread across the hillside, purple and white blooms covering the earth like a living memorial. Atlas was buried beside her now. 2 graves, 2 guardians, together in death as they had been in spirit. "I did it." Emma knelt in the soft grass. "Everything you hoped for, everything Clara dreamed, it's real now." The wind stirred the flowers. The center is thriving, the survivors are healing, and Jake... Emma smiled through tears. Jake is happy, finally, for the first time since Afghanistan. She placed a small stone on Dorothy's grave, another on Atlas's. "I still carry bread in my pocket, every day. I still share whatever I have. I still try to be the person you saw in me, that scared woman in the snow who didn't know she was worth saving." Emma stood. "Thank you. For waiting. For believing. For giving me a chance to become who I was supposed to be." A bark echoed from the valley, Phoenix calling her home. Emma turned, wiped her tears, and walked toward the future she'd built from the ashes of the past. Behind her, the graves stood silent, but the covenant continued. The legacy lived on. And somewhere beyond the mountains, Clara Sullivan and Dorothy Morrison and a German shepherd named Atlas watched over the woman they had saved, the woman who had saved so many others, and knew that their sacrifice had meant something after all. Emma Sullivan had signed her death in tears. She had signed her future in hope, and the signature that mattered most, the one that would echo through generations, was the choice she made every single day. To survive, to fight, to love, to heal. The Ashfords tried to destroy her. They failed. Because some storms don't break you. They make you. And Emma Sullivan Morrison, survivor, fighter, protector of the broken, stood as eternal proof that the worst endings can become the greatest beginnings. The covenant continued. The guardians watched, and the wild things remembered who had fed them in their darkest hour. The end.